Here's another example of identifying a short leg and a long leg in a person, correcting for that, and seeing a problem that was not going away go away. So I've done many shows on leg length differences or leg length discrepancy, and solving that has really helped a lot of people. Here's another case of this in just a moment. So I was trained decades ago to look for this. The research on leg length discrepancy, a long leg or a short leg, goes back to World War II. World War II, soldiers were starting to get evaluated for long and short legs, and they were actually taking x-rays at the time to measure them, standing x-rays. That's the easy way of really establishing that. So what they found is soldiers that had significant discrepancies had more trouble with heavy packs, long hikes. So sometimes that would determine if somebody was going to be a foot soldier or not, if I have my facts correct. So we've known about this importance in in looking for long legs and short legs and correcting for it if necessary. Okay, so very recently, a 58-year-old man comes to see me. He says 2 months ago, he has a flare-up of right hip and right lateral upper and lower leg pain after an active day. He was seeding the lawn and splitting some wood. Okay, catch this now. In his case, no low back pain. No low back pain. That's important as we go along here, okay? But the pain was in the outside of the leg, basically from the hip, kind of like the iliotibial band, to the knee, and then sometimes past the knee, okay? So you can see it's kind of hiding itself as a hip problem, right? He went to physical therapy for 6 visits, a little bit of relief, but he reached a plateau. And again, it was focused on the hip. The worst pain was sitting in the car even for 10 minutes. He can only sleep at night on his back with his legs up. So, okay, so that's kind of indicating, starting to smell like a back problem, because these are things that people with back problems do. Over-the-counter medications did not help. Physical therapy exercises he can do without pain. He's still able to run twice a week at 1.5 miles without an increase in pain. He can still bike and use weights at the gym with no increase in pain, so activity was pretty much okay. He changed to a stand-up desk before coming to see me, which helps a little bit. He was doing 50-50 sit-stand, and that managed it and helped a little. And then when he came to see me, his leg pain was 3/10, 10 being terrible, 3/10. Okay, great. So I look at him, which I do. So we go into, I obviously take a history and do our stuff and get into the background history, family history, and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So then we start an orthopedic postural neurological examination, and part of that is having somebody stand without their shoes on. We take a look, okay? And I'm looking at him, and sure enough, I see, remember, this is a right-sided pain problem. I see his right hip up high, okay? Not as much as I'm showing you right now, but it's up there. So, and I've got a trained eye, and I'm looking for this kind of thing, and boom, I'm like, that's a long leg. So I'm keeping this in the back of my mind, right? So we go through our stuff, put them on my table. I'm doing some other orthopedic checks. And then you can also do a rough leg length check when somebody is on the table. Whether they're on their back, you can look at their feet. And when they're on their tummy, you can look at their feet and kind of get a rough gauge of if there's a long or short leg. So sure enough, when he's on the table, I could see that right leg was longer, left one was shorter, and I could see the pelvis was high on the right, low on the left. Now, I didn't have the benefit for the x-ray yet, because he had some x-rays taken in the past, which we're getting, which will probably confirm what we're looking for. But on x-rays, we can measure to the millimeter of how much something is off. Okay. So I then see this consistency, and I also know something else. Now, I have a short right leg. It's about 1/4 inch. It's about 6 millimeters. So I've known for years that I would stand on my right leg. One of the consistencies, this is not across the board rule, but one of the things is we tend to stand on our short leg. Right now, as I am in front of you right now, I'm standing on my left leg now, favoring my left leg, and it still feels odd. I still feel compressed. It doesn't feel correct. I go back to my right leg, it's easier. We tend to stand on our short leg because there's less compression on the foot, the knee, the hip, the back, and everything else up. When I stand on my left, yep, doesn't feel as natural, doesn't hurt, but it feels like it's a little bit jammed, just a tiny bit. Stand back on my right, it's easier. So with this man, he has a short left leg. So I pointed out to him when he was standing and talking to me, sure enough, he was favoring and standing on his left leg. And then I asked people, do you always stand on that left leg kind of like that? He's like, yeah. I said, try to stand on your right. So he's standing on his long leg now. He says, yeah, I don't like that. Oh yeah, that's much more comfortable, okay? So this is fitting a pattern. Not everyone with a short leg, I always say short leg because that's the one you fix, that's the one you correct. Not everybody with a short leg will follow the pattern that I just gave you. And that's why somebody with some experience like myself can start to weave our way through this and then make some changes. Do you follow? Okay, so I didn't have the benefit of knowing how much he was off on x-ray, but I could see, it could be maybe even a ½ inch. I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give, I use these small slices, almost like little carpenter wedges. If a board is out of alignment, you start with a thin wedge and then measure it again, check it with a level, put in a little thicker one and check it, and then so on and so on until you find the right amount, okay? So I start with a 3 millimeter lift, and then a 5, and then a 7, and then we figure it out. This is all conjecture. This is all hypothesis. It's all testing. And I told him this. I don't know if this is going to help you, but let's try this. So I give him a couple of lifts to try between the first visit and the next one. And I also said, because now he's spending some of his time sitting, and his pain was bad in the car. You follow? Pain was bad in the car. So if he has a short left leg, and he's up on this side, if he's not standing, if he's sitting in the car or sitting at work, he doesn't get any benefit from a lift in his shoe. So I have him use a lift under his rear end. We call it an ischial lift because the sit bone is the ischium. So I use an ischial lift, and I said, hey, sit on your hand right now. How does that feel? He's like, kind of good. I'm like, okay, I want you to sit on your hand all day. No, and then I said, no, that gets kind of uncomfortable. But what we want is something about the thickness of your hand underneath there. So what I have people do, if this is working for them, is they fold up a hand towel into a little square. And then they would sit on it on the short side. So now he's got a lift when he's standing to help him there. And he's got a lift when he sits to help him there, which he also used immediately in the car because the car was the worst pain. Okay? We are hitting a home run here. We're in the process of hitting a home run. He comes back, visit 2, he's like, yeah, I think you're onto something. That was his first comment to me. I think you're onto something, okay? He was already feeling relief. He said, right away I could sit much more of the day, much more comfortable, and I don't have that driving pain in the car. Now, in my chiropractic office, I'm doing adjustments with my instruments and table and hands to help guide those tissues and bones and those nerve sensors, proprioceptors, mechanoreceptors, those nerve sensors that tell us where we are in space. His nerve sensors were used to this. This has been burned in for 58 years. So I'm training those nerve sensors and the tissues and the bones and everything else to go this way with adjustments on my table. So we're giving him some relief there, okay? And using the adjustments and the lifts and the sitting lift and so forth, we're making some big gains. I think he's been in 3 times, and massive reduction in pain. Just this past weekend, he drives to Maine. He said, no problem. I drove up there, I had no pain. Now, he was super active in Maine, which stirred things up a little bit, so he had pain on the drive back home, because it was already aggravated. But he said the next day, he says, I'm recovering much more quickly now. I can see that this is going to be the way out. So another great deal. What I do is, not only do we look at it visually standing, not only do we add that on by looking at somebody on their tummy, but we might, if necessary, snap an x-ray, a standing x-ray, okay, without shoes on, because we don't want faulty shoes to make a difference in there as well. But here's the last point is, it's only done as a trial. Even though I could see what was going on with them, I said, I don't know if it's going to work or not. There are some people, I see a short leg, I give them a lift, and it doesn't help. I told you a story 2 decades ago of a woman that came in with a big difference in leg length, almost an inch. The day I gave her a lift, she said my chronic back pain of years is now significantly better, like 90% better overnight. So sometimes it's incredibly important as well. So we will add a lift, and he'll probably have a heel lift just like I do for the rest of your life, and an ischial lift and so forth. But something as simple as this, mimicked as a hip and knee and leg problem, but it was all stemming from a misalignment in here from having one leg was long, one leg was short. Correcting for that looks like it's going to be a great outcome. So try it. Look, be aware of these things, and then hook up with somebody that has some experience. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.